to shelve whatever's happening between Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and some of those members who are trying to impeach him. But let's start with what will play out tomorrow. We expect the vetting of those CS nominees, the names that were fronted by President William Ruto, to start in Parliament. It will be an intensive 3 days of vetting from Thursday through to Sunday, and thereafter we expect the whole House to take a look at that particular report forwarded by the relevant committees on Tuesday next week. So let's begin right there, Osoi. Yeah. Bearing in mind what played out the last time the vetting of cabinet secretaries was taking place, where we had some members from the opposition benches mention that perhaps we should give President Ruto his skunk, quote unquote, because they didn't see how efficient that cabinet would be. And they were quoted by saying that the president would run the government from State House. This time round, do you have faith in Parliament doing its sole duty of taking a look at these names, vetting their, the status when it comes to competency, when it comes to matters to do with integrity? Do you have faith in Parliament, the 13th Parliament?
I would really say that we have a lot of problems in our Parliament today. Mm-hmm. The decisions that we see in our Parliament today are not geared to or from the interests of the people, or that which should be the case. We have had parliamentarians or legislatures being given some handouts to influence some decisions or to engineer some motions in the Parliament today. I want to say that we had a lot of demos previously, and these demos were to enable the citizens to have the control of our Parliament today. That thing has not been yet achieved. So what we are seeing today is a merge of, I would call them crooks. That is what I would call them, and I'm sorry to use those words, because what we are seeing here, we saw a bill that was passed that was not to the interests of the people. Okay. And I always say that we have missed priorities of activities or event, whereby today we should be talking of having replaced those MPs constitutionally and having the control of the Parliament, so that the decision made by the Parliament today, we as the citizens of this country can have trust on them. So from where I sit, I can clearly say that there is no confidence, and these people cannot actually give any decision that is in support to what the Kenyan people want. Okay. And if I would have seen a scenario whereby we have had those members of Parliament that went against the will of people, having been replaced and having the control of the Parliament as the citizens, then we can talk of having faith in the Parliament today.
Okay, interesting. Yes. Melita, yes. Do you hold the same thoughts that perhaps Parliament is simply going to rubber stamp some of these decisions that have been made by the other arms of government? Is Parliament an appendage of the executive, as it's commonly said, from your view?
Not exactly, but in practice it can be true that Parliament can sometimes be an appendage to the executive. Why? Because when somebody runs for presidency, you would want to have also a majority control of the House so that you can be able to implement your policies. Having said that, I know the entire country right now is not, doesn't have much faith with the current Parliament as it is, and for good reasons. I mean, owing to what has been happening in the last 1 month. But personally, I choose to be optimistic for several reasons. Number one, for the simple fact that the whole country is going to watch what Parliament will be doing in as far as these nominees are concerned. The whole country will expect to see an objective vetting. Nominees to be vetted according to their abilities, according to their experiences, according to their backgrounds. So I choose to be optimistic at this point in time. As to what my colleague has just mentioned, that Parliament is a group of crooks. I tend to disagree with that for several reasons. Number one, if the gauge he is using is the finance bill 2024 that has been rejected, in my community they say in conventional wisdom that a lie can travel around the world while the truth is still putting us in its shoes. There was a lot of controversy around the Finance Bill 2024, and there are so many clauses that most of us as Kenyans were against, and we were happy that most of them were dropped, especially the 17 clauses, among them the one for motor vehicle tax and many other taxes. And we were happy that most of them were dropped. But we also saw a lot of fake news and lies around the subject of the Finance Bill 2024.
Yeah.
For example, people brought in a regulatory issue on land as being part of the Finance Bill, and it wasn't. So most of the dissent against Finance Bill 2024 is actually based on untruths. But eventually, I think with time, people will get vindicated, as it is ongoing right now. And, in as far as the recalling of MPs is concerned, I think the Constitution has provided an avenue for that as well. If there are very good grounds for an MP to be recalled, I think the Constitution has taken care of that as well. In terms of collection of signatures, I'm not sure how many. And I think there is already some constituencies where those processes are already in motion.
It's a tedious process.
Yeah, it is a tedious process.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So it's interesting to have both sides of the divide right here. So back to you, Osoi.
Yes.
When you hear such that perhaps we should give the benefit of doubt to Parliament, and when we wait for that vetting process to start, what should Kenyans anticipate? And equally, give us your personal take on some of the nominees that have been picked by President William Ruto. Because there was push and pull that some of these names have made it back in terms of nominations to cabinet positions. Do you agree that perhaps they were part of the problem and hence they should have been dropped in this second round of naming of cabinet secretaries?
Correct.
We should have started with a clean slate.
Let me say this and to clarify on the statement that I've just submitted here. You see, what we have in this country is not the problem of the leaders who get into the parliament. We have a problem in governance and policies and rule of law in this country, which is never observed. And I want to make it clear, I'm not pointing out as a person who is aspiring to be the Kenyan president in 2027, by the way. I'm saying that to make it to create a balance, because me as Patrick Osoi, aspiring to be the Kenyan president in 2027, I wouldn't want a failed government. Either way, I wouldn't even want Dr. William Ruto, the president of this country, to fail, because if he fails, we as the citizens fail. So I'm at a point of pointing out that these people who are in the parliament, the system today, and the political class people, when they get into parliament, when they go and find the policies and that are there are favorable to them, they don't have the courtesy to think, is it favorable to the Kenyan citizens? So we have a leadership in this country that is so selfish, and they do not consider the interest of the people in this country. So I'm actually looking forward to see genuine leaders. And I would want somebody to point out, even to our tweet today or to the comment session,
yes.
if they know of one genuine leader in this country who is not enslaved by the party, their parties, who is not enslaved by their tribal, who are not enslaved by any type of alienation in this country. So we are lacking genuine people and genuine leaders in this country who can speak out and say, I know this thing is favorable to me, but is it favorable to you, Rogers? Okay. So we want to have those kind of leaders come forth so that we are able to have a country that is governed by the law. Today, I'll tell you clearly, we are provided by Section 232, Article 10, 232, on the principles and the values of appointing leaders in this country. I want to say that the faces we are seeing and those who are appointed are the faces that are known to the people in this country. Actually, I was saying, if I become the Kenyan president today, I wouldn't want my hands to be tied, whereby I need to make personal decisions. Because when I'm allowed to make personal decisions, then I include now friends and people to govern this country. So let us have a country that is run by meritocratic aspect, or people who are there by merit. You are in this station by merit. It doesn't matter how eloquent Patrick Osoy can be, or whoever can be, to be. I cannot come and ask for the job you're doing today. You are here as a professional. You went to school and did what you did, and this is why you are here. Today, what we are seeing in this country, in all aspects of leadership, we are seeing a situation whereby people are in their specific places, and they do not meet the threshold of being in those places. Two, why can't we have a mind? I know it is provided by in our constitution. It is at the presidency or president discretion to appoint people in the CS, for example. Sure. But why can't we have Kenyans of goodwill, everyone in this country, apply for that job and have a meritocratic process whereby Kenyans are elected, appointed, not by the president, by what they are able to dispense and run this country. Okay. So, and that is why I'm saying that if there be any leader in this country who can stand out and to say, I have stood out at the balance, and that is why I can call myself as a genuine leader, not a crook, as I mentioned earlier, that I am considered to the things that I'm seeing in the parliament today. I think it is not right for us to alienate in this. It is not right for me to be given these allowances. It is not right for me to be given 130 million as a member of parliament to go and have it as CDF. Why do we have these things that we found in our constitution, or that which favors the leaders today? Because what we have in our leadership system is a system that makes the leader look like a god to the people. Yes.
So that's interesting. Though some might argue that those who voted no when it came to the finance bill perhaps can stand for themselves as leaders. But as we cross over to you, Melita, was this a political crisis or a moral dilemma we were facing as a country? Because there's a school of thought out there that seems to believe that perhaps the political class converging and trying to save an agenda, be it the country's agenda or their personal agenda, has sort of overtaken what the Gen Z protesters were going to the streets to agitate for. So has the agitation by Gen Z been overtaken by political interests that we've seen play out day by day right here in the country?
Thank you. That's a very good question. There is no denying the fact that what we're facing as a country is a political crisis.
It is.
And there is no other way to solve it than through a political solution. You can blend in everything else in terms of the moral card that you're saying. But the world over, even in the world's most advanced democracy where he comes from, the US, politics is what is the biggest currency. For example, he has just mentioned that in terms of appointing CSS, for example, that it should be a process where people apply. We do that, but on the PSS level, the accounting officers, But even in the US, the world's most advanced democracy, President Biden, for example, appointed, it is his prerogative, appointed individuals based on his own choice. He even appointed some who are also serving under Obama, you see? Because sometimes it is dictated by the policies of the party. And being Democrats, they had to pick the best brains that they have in their own databases, those who will help in furthering their democratic cause. Back to our country. We have a lot of moral asymmetry across the country, not just in politics. We have quickly forgotten that EACC just the other day was telling us about fake degrees in government. And I am quite certain that we have the same number of fake degrees even in the private sector. So now to bring in the moral card into the political system is a bit tricky, because when you come into politics, the mobilization of our African politics, not just Kenyan, is based on, first of all, your own social network. Mm-hmm. Number two, it's also based on your own ethnicity. That is how we mobilize our politics. Yeah, yeah. So as a president or any other leader for that matter, even at the gubernatorial level, you mobilize your statistics to guarantee you victory based on certain mobilization, which is at the gubernatorial level, maybe clan systems. You negotiate, sort of. We've seen that happening in Northeastern, for example. At the national level, we saw what BBI was trying to do. It was galvanizing us into ethnic cocoons. For even the current president as well, he has to create that broad-based government, but it will have that element of ethnicity in it. Because at the end of the day, all politics is local and all politics is about numbers. So we cannot escape that. He dissolved the cabinet entirely. Apart from the prime cabinet secretary and of course the deputy president. He has only brought in, I think, 8 from the previous numbers. And the 8 that we have seen, I think, yes, it's debatable, but we've seen that almost all of them, if not most of them, have performed very well in their previous dockets. For example, CS Soipan, she was never an environmentalist, she was not a climate expert, but her record in the environment ministry speaks for itself. She mobilized Africa, she assembled Africa in Nairobi, I think that was September last year. Mm-hmm. We came up with this idea of African Green Initiative. Yeah. We went into COP28 in Dubai, and we had some very good wins from that conference, like the Damage and Loss Fund, and the many other outcomes from that conference that we can say, as Africa or even as Kenya, we are now on the world map in as far as climate change is concerned. C.S. Duale, for example, he also did exceptionally well in the Ministry of Defense, but it is debatable. C.S. Kindiki also did well in modernizing the police service in terms of equipment. We've seen there's some silence in the bandit-prone areas.
So in retrospect, you don't fault those whose names made it back to the list?
No, not entirely.
They must have, we don't want to throw the baby in the bathwater. Exactly. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Okay, I guess the vetting process will dot the I's and cross the T's when it comes to their positives and the negatives they have in those capacities. But also quite briefly, because we're still talking about Parliament right now,
correct,
and the numbers sort of seem to have shifted in favor of the Kenya Kwanza government. Because this is, of course, not on paper, but if you take a look at the members of ODM, which constitute the larger part of Azimio, seem to have been drawn into the government, at least by optics. We've heard from Raila Odinga that he's still the opposition leader, that they have enjoined government, that those who did so with the blessings of the party, of course, but they will have to step down from the positions of the party. What does this really tell you in terms of the democracy we're in as a country? Because so much is put on the shoulders of the opposition in terms of holding the government to check. But now that we might have an opposition that is working with the government to bring the country to a certain position they want to, what does it do to the democracy? What exactly happens when the lines are blurred between the government and the opposition from where you sit?
I want to say that I have a very high respect, actually, to the U.S. government for democracy issues, who, in this case, they only have 2 parties as a country, as if that is where we draw our reference in matters of democracy. And the country which I would say that is not a country that we should be borrowing how to run this country. because I've been there for 3 years, and I was so keen to understand why this country is a first world country and how do they play their politics in matters of democracy and other issues. I want to say that in this country today, the democracy we are seeing, the people appointed on the CS today, you know, there is no rationale, Rogers, whereby me as a CEO or a manager or whoever, where I dismiss a certain person and later on recall this person, having not even gone through legal process, probably suing the institution that I was unfairly treated, because we are seeing other CSs can decide to sue the government for being dismissed unfairly, one, because they are those who are recalled back. So are we seeing a situation whereby there were no good guidelines to the executive on matters of who was to be dismissed and who was to be left? Why couldn't we have a situation whereby instead of dismissing the whole cabinet and recalling them back, where a situation whereby we have dismissed who are supposed to be dismissed and leave them whoever was to be left and debate about it. To date, what we are seeing here is that we are seeing a political, from the political point of view, we are seeing a political advantage being leveraged from what Gen Zs were doing. And these people are doing arithmetics of 2027 elections. And I want to tell you, and honestly tell every Kenyan today, that 2027 elections or politics will be very different in this country. And I want to say this as a young person. In 21st century, we should not be talking about ethnic. We should not be talking about gender. We should not be talking about religion. We should not be talking any kind of alienation, because the world is so diverse today that we have a lot of diversity whereby people cannot have a sitting today to talk about ethnic. We cannot sit down today to talk about where do you come from, where, and all that stuff. Let's have it as a segment of management as a country, but not from the point of having leaders from those respective places. What we have today in this country is not democracy. With the multipartyism that is provided in our constitution, Article 4, in matters that this country is diverse, you know, in matters, you know, political parties and all that stuff. These are just enterprises. And that is why in Kenya today, we have more than 90 registered political parties in this country, because these people are looking at it as somewhere to draw money, and in this case, public money. So where I stand and where I sit is that the democracy of this country has been really compromised, and Right Honorable Raila Odinga does not represent democracy in this country, and I want to make it very clear. Democracy is represented by a cluster of Kenyan citizens. Like, it's we are supposed to represent the democracy in this country, which the citizens are not allowed to execute it. Yes.
So it's interesting. You paint an ideal scenario where perhaps politics is not driven by ethnic divide and whatnot, but I think more civic education needs to be done, especially to the older generation that still applies to that school of thought.
Actually,
you know?
Today, in countries, the West countries today, somebody can sue you for referring them as certain gender. So you need to be very like, we are in a world whereby things are revolving so fast that we need to catch up with them. Let's not discuss about political parties in slavery in this country. Let's not talk about any kind of division. Let's talk about meritocratic merits of people who are provided. And again, we have a lot of Kenyans who qualify for the respective seats that those people are recalled to do. I think it was better, and for the interest of the executive, to give other Kenyans an opportunity to serve in those capacities.
So Melita, he seems to hint that, you know, these political parties are more of special purpose vehicles to serve personal interests in one way or the other. I'll pose the same question to you in terms of the lines being blurred, the line between the opposition and the government of the day. Because we have a scenario right now where, and I'm sure the MPs who are vetting will be putting these nominees to question, we have a scenario where the former or the current ODM chair, John Badi, will be in charge of the finance ministry. What do you expect in the next financial year when he's bringing the finance bill to Parliament? Do you expect ODM MPs to vote against it, where we know very well that, party lines are like this, you're told the party position and you have to draw. Equally, we've heard of Wycliffe Oparanya being vocal and castigating the Hustler Fund. He now finds himself in charge of the ministry that drives the Hustler Fund. So we're in a position that perhaps these individuals don't believe in the ideals of the Kenya Kwanza administration. I know only a fool doesn't change his mind, but it's an intricate position we find ourselves in. Your take on that?
Yeah, first of all, I think in terms of the line being blurred, it is debatable, but the ODM party leader, the Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga, has clearly pronounced himself on that issue,
yes,
and so has the President, that there is no political agreement between ODM and Kenya Kwanza. That the only thing the President has done as his prerogative is to appoint members of ODM into cabinet. And he has very good reasons. One, for example, he mentioned the issue of housing, for example. That housing was in the manifesto of ODM, it was in the manifesto of UDA. So why don't you bring in these new ideas and blend it with what you have to come up with something that is agreeable to the rest of the country? There is also no constitutional provision that dictates that the President should only appoint Kenyans who are ascribed to UDA or Kenya Kwanza.
Sure.
He can appoint anybody. And we've seen that happening for the first time. We've seen a lady becoming now an AG nominee. We saw also in the past some executive appointments that have been sort of a preserve of a certain ethnic groups. For example, it was Ruto for the first time is the one who appointed somebody from Luo Nyanza as a chief of defense forces. We've seen clips circulating of an MP one time telling President Ruto that his dream is to see a Luo being appointed as a CS finance, and now we have one. The President can appoint anybody, and my point is that you can bring in any Kenyan who you think has that expertise, has that brilliant idea to help you make yours better.
Okay.
That is basically what we've done.
Then
so the lines are not exactly blurred,
okay,
in my view.
Let me follow it.
They are
this
still
question.
members of ODM.
Interesting. But let me follow it with this question. Now that all this has played out,
Yes,
and we perhaps anticipate the best, as you said, we're being positive. If they're confirmed in these particular positions, what political implications will it bring to these particular parties? To the ODM members who decided that we are voting for Raila in 2022, and right now have seen that Raila and Ruto might be one and the same thing, at least from a political lens. What happens to the UDM members who believed that perhaps not this time? Because we had political players mention, including members of the executive, that not this time, not Raila joining government. It won't happen. And yet it has played out. So should we take these politicians, your word is your bond, how will it play out come 2027 from your point of view? Will there be a political consequence from the masses? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any keen analyst can observe right now that we have seen sort of a lull in what has been happening in the last few weeks. There was a time when most people thought that this country is collapsing. But when the President made those appointments, especially from ODM, there is some sort of a quiet. We've seen celebrations in Nyanza, for example, people getting very excited.
True.
We've seen even on social media a lot of excitement because of those appointments. And they can go, in my view, they can go either way. One, because you have created a cabinet that has the face of Kenya. If you do a quick analysis in terms of the regions, you will see that every region, the traditional provinces, are represented. But in terms of 2027, it is too early to say or to assure yourself that this could be what will be happening in 2027. But as they say, a day in politics is like a lifetime. We have seen very many indications because being very honest with each other, when you see the Right Honorable Prime Minister is now going to African Union, we wish him well. And also from his age, by 2027, I don't think he will be very active in the political arena.